going today? Terrific. Our recording's going. This is the Humane Rescue Alliance and St. Hubert's Careers Working with Animals, an event that we created especially for middle school students who care about animals. So I am guessing that that is all of you who are on this call. So thank you very much for joining and being on time. My name is Debbie. I work in Washington, D.C. with the Humane Rescue Alliance, and my counterpart, Karen, who's in New Jersey at St. Hubert's. She's working the back end. She's going to monitor the chat and do all the technical things that I don't know how to do. We have lots of speakers today. We only have a short time to visit today, but in that time, we're going to meet Jen, who's an HRA volunteer, and so much more, and Jackie, who's a professional dog trainer. Then towards the end, we'll meet Ada and Ivana, and they are dog groomers with their own business in Silver Spring, Maryland. And finally, we'll meet Officer Sarah Long with the Humane Rescue Alliance. So before we get started, a few housekeeping reminders. This event is being recorded. You probably already know that because it said this event is being recorded. I'm going to ask you to use your chat button for most everything. You know, if a question pops in your head and it's not the right time to interrupt, if you put it in the chat, we'll be able to monitor that. And please keep your microphone on mute unless you're specifically asked to respond to a question. I think those are all things that we've been doing now for the last 20 months. So you guys are pros at it. I'm not going to take up any more time. I'm going to get right to it and introduce our first speaker. And our first speaker is Jen, and she is actually a retired attorney and longtime animal welfare volunteer. During her 25-year practice of law, Jen was actively involved in her firm's recruiting, hiring, and professional mentoring programs, and she continues to mentor and coach law students and young lawyers today. She began volunteering with the Washington Animal Rescue League way back in 2012, shortly after she adopted her beloved cats, Mango and Brady, from the shelter. She now volunteers with both the Humane Rescue Alliance in DC and the Animal Rescue Rhode Island in Rhode Island, working directly with cats. Working directly with cats in the shelter and serving as a case manager for adult cats in foster care, and supporting both organizations' humane education programs. And I couldn't do all the work I do on Zoom without Jen. So we're going to turn it over to her so she can introduce lots and lots and lots of topics in the next 30 minutes. There you go, and we should have Jen, if you want to go ahead and share your screen. We got it.
I think we're there, Debbie, and I appreciate that. And hi, everyone. As Debbie said, I am Jen, and I am going to provide an overview today of working with animals before we talk to our special guests who get to work with animals every day. Before we get started into the substance of what I have prepared to talk about, I wanted to ask a couple questions to try to understand a little bit about what brought you all to us in this conversation this afternoon. And as Debbie said, you can answer by either, in this case, if you're on video, putting your hand in the air because it's a yes or no question, or using your raise the hand function, or in the chat. But my questions are pretty easy at the outset. They get a little tougher as we go on. But the first question I have is really, why it is that you decided to join us today. And my questions are, which of you is here because you know already that you want to work with animals when you grow up? Which of you fall into that category? Today, as we sit here today, that you want to work with animals when you grow up. Any of you out there know that for sure? How many of you think that you might want to work with animals? I love all the me's that are coming up in the chat. That's awesome. How many of you think that you might want to work with animals and you want to learn a little bit about what types of careers there might be in that area? Terrific. I see a couple people with their hands up for that one too. And how many people just love animals and never thought that this was something that they could do, actually work with animals for a living. But they wanted to hear what opportunities existed in that area. Anybody fall into that category? Well, I think it's fantastic, whatever category you fell into, because the substance that we're going to talk about today is really something each of you, no matter what reason brought you here today, can use as you start thinking about careers and as you start thinking about animals. And I have to say that I think it's just awesome that you're already thinking about your careers in middle school and trying to give some thought to what it is that you're going to do later on. So thank you for joining us. We're super excited about today's program. Now, I want to start with talking about you a little bit, because whenever you think about any kind of a career, you want to think about the things that you do best and the things that you're most interested in. So on this slide, I have the question, what are your academic strengths? And by academic strengths, I don't necessarily mean the class that you get the best grade in, though oftentimes you will get a good grade in a class that is your academic strength. But the question really is, what is the class that you're so excited to go to every day? I mean, I get it. There are some days you're not going to be excited for all classes, but what's the class you really like, the class that you get excited to go to? And on this slide, I've included what I think about as the 4 core classes that you take in middle school and then in high school. And they may have different names at different schools, but they fall into math, and it might be algebra or geometry or calculus, and science, which might be biology or chemistry or physics, social studies, and literature. And so I have a question for all of you now, and you can use the chat for this. And here's the question. Of these 4 subject matters, which one do you think it would be best to have a strength in order to work with animals? What do you think? I see science, see phys ed. Anybody else have a thought? Science and math? Somebody just got the answer, because it was a trick question, which is all of them. And the answer is that no matter what your strength is academically, there is a job for you in working with animals, and we're going to explore those jobs today. So whether your strength is in math, science, social studies, literature, or it's in art, public speaking, computers, theater, or phys ed, or any other subject that you might like at school, the fact of the matter is that there is a job for you working with animals. But academic strengths in school isn't the only thing that it's about. What also matters is, what are your interests?
Somebody call me.
And in the materials for this class, we talked about, if you like jigsaw puzzles, and you like mysteries, then maybe you would be somebody that would be a good animal cruelty officer and investigator. And if you like hair and makeup, then maybe you would be a good dog groomer, right? And we're going to talk to an animal control officer, and we're going to talk with dog groomers today. And so they can talk to you about what their interests were and how they ended up in their careers. But any interest that you have might lead you to a good career with animals. And so I know many of you, and I'm going to ask you, how many of you are into social media, like Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok and all of those things? Any of you out there like social media? Well, if you do, and if you spend a lot of it, I see the yes coming in. I see some people saying I'm not allowed to have it, and I totally understand that too. But if you are into things like social media, there are terrific opportunities for you working with animals, and we're going to talk about those as well. And really, it doesn't matter what your interests are, whether you're into gardening or food, hiking, and believe it or not, video games, there's a job for you working with animals. So what we're going to talk about today is, how do you think about the strengths that you have, and how do you think about the interests that you have, And how do you think about all of these amazing animals? And you'll see here, I didn't just include cats and dogs, though of course I did include cats and dogs, right? Because when we're talking about animals, we're talking about all different kinds of animals. And so what we're going to try to think about is, how do I think about what my strengths are? How do I think about what my interests are? And how do I think about animals to figure out what a good career path for me would be? So that brings us to what I will call a pop quiz. And I bet you didn't think that we were going to have a pop quiz today, but this one is hopefully going to be a fun one for you. I'm going to show you a video, and the video is a video of a day in the life at an animal shelter. The animal shelter is not the Humane Rescue Alliance or St. Hubert's Animal Welfare Center, the two organizations that we're from, but it is a shelter that's very similar to ours. It's in Minnesota. And the video is basically designed to show people what happens in any day, a single day at an animal shelter to make the animal shelter run. It's a pretty powerful video about how animal shelters operate and everything that needs to happen at an animal shelter. But the pop quiz for all of you is to watch the video and to think about and to see how many jobs there are in this 3-minute video in allowing a animal shelter to run in a single day. So as you watch the video, I want you to pay attention to how many jobs that you see. And when the video is over, I'm going to ask you to add what you see in the chat so that we can see what jobs you pick up. And the good news about this pop quiz is that the only person who can do poorly on it is me, because I have a list that I'm going to show you at the end, and you can see if you found a job that maybe I missed. So let's go ahead and take a look at the video. And as I said, as you watch it, you'll be distracted by the pets in it because they're amazing. But really pay attention to the jobs that you see so we can talk about them when the video's over. Okay, let me see if I can get this up on my screen. Okay, so anybody want, I like the note, so cute. Oh, somebody has already added some jobs into the chat. I see so many there. Anybody want to add to that list? And yes, it is an emotional video, right? It's a really powerful video. So we have technician, volunteer, surgeon, groomer, investigator, phone person, trainer, transporter. Anybody see any other jobs there? Adoption coordinator. Anybody see anything else? Animal control officers, yes. You are very observant. I think it is a terrific job. Did anybody see the humane education that was happening in the video, like what you're seeing right here? There were walkers, absolutely. So let's see how I did. I can tell you somebody found one that I did miss. So we'll see which one I missed, which was the transporter, because you absolutely needed somebody to drive that van that was transporting animals to the animal shelter. But I found 10 jobs in looking at that video. And that's one day, and that's what you're seeing on video. And so all of those jobs are available at an animal welfare organization. And in fact, the video didn't show all of the people that make an animal welfare organization work. There are a lot of people behind the scenes at an organization like that that are necessary to the functioning of an animal welfare organization or an animal shelter. The people that I usually describe as the suits, the people who are wearing suits in the background. So you might have somebody who's an executive director, the chief executive officer who's responsible for the whole organization. And that person is likely to have management around her or him that helps to run the organization. If you have a nonprofit organization, you need fundraising staff, the people who are going to go out and get donations that help the organization continue its mission. You need social media experts because animal shelters show their animals on things like Instagram and TikTok and the internet. You need cruelty investigators. You need lobbyists and lawyers to advocate for the animals. And this is all in the animal welfare and advocacy. Just one single area where you could be working with animals. I've got a bunch of slides on some other areas where you can work with animals, but I'm gonna ask you again a question again, I should say, which is are there any other areas other than animal welfare and advocacy that you can think about where you might have a job working with animals? Let's see what you come up with and see if I've touched on them all or if there are some that you came up with that I didn't come up with. Zookeeper, I see that, and we will talk about zoos. Anything else? Animal rescue, for sure. Fostering, absolutely. Animal vet, animal vet, animal trackers. Well, we've got a couple of vets in the chat, so I'm going to go to my next slide, which is in fact animal health, because a lot of times when we think about animals and working with animals, we do think about vets. And I love that I see a couple of folks have vet techs, and I think I saw somebody mention that somebody in their family is a vet tech. Because when you work in animal health, it's not just about being a vet, right? You need other people at the veterinarian office as well, whether it's an office, a small office, or whether it's a veterinary hospital. You need people like receptionists to greet people at the door. You need animal care attendants to take care of the animals if the animals stay overnight. You need veterinary technicians. And then, of course, you need the vets. And I see that I've got more answers coming in through the chat as well. We've got farmers. We're not going to talk about them today, but you are absolutely right that farmers work with animals. We are going to talk about some of the scientists and the ISTs. I've got a very long list of ISTs for you. And I think people that study that IST list as well. So we've got animal health. And then what about all of the pet services that are necessary in order for us to have animals in our homes, in order to keep our animals happy and healthy. There are so many different jobs in the pet services space that you might not have even considered as being a job. You could work at a pet supply shop or be a dog groomer. We're going to be talking to some dog groomers later today. You could be a trainer or a behaviorist, and we're going to talk to a dog trainer today. You could run a kennel so that when people go away, they have a place to leave their dog. Or you could be a dog walker, as we have in the picture here, so that when people go to work, they have somebody that can take care of their dog while they're at the office. You could be a pet sitter, and you can do doggy daycare. And you might notice that some of those jobs are jobs that you might be able to do when you're younger, while some of those jobs you probably need a lot more education and experience before you can do them. And those are things we're going to talk about as well, as education, experience, and how you think about these jobs. So here's one that didn't come up on your list, and one that I think is a pretty terrific job if you like both animals and people, because when you work with service and working animals, you get to benefit both animals and people. And this category includes therapy animal handlers, somebody who works with a dog and then brings them to an environment, exactly, service dogs, brings them to an environment where they can help humans. And then for those video game heroes, search and rescue is a pretty terrific job as well, and probably something you don't think about, which is where you can go out and you can, basically go to a disaster zone and try to find people and help people. Or if somebody goes missing, you can go look for them. So to me, that's like a hero job, and there are lots of other hero jobs that you can have in working with animals. I see police dogs and canine dogs absolutely is another way to work with dogs and animals as well. Somebody mentioned zoo staff being a zookeeper. And I thought that was great because it is one of my slides. But one question I have for you, and it's based on the pictures here, is you definitely need a zookeeper at a zoo. What else do you need? What other jobs do you think might exist at a zoo that you might not have thought about before we started talking about jobs working with animals today? At a zoo, and the pictures give you a couple of hints. Janitor at a zoo, absolutely. You need people to clean up everything, pretty much everything at a zoo. You need vets at a zoo. That's exactly right as well. What about this, the middle picture here? Food. There's where I was going with that, right? You've got animals that all need different kinds of food, right? That owl is going to eat something very different from the giraffe, who's going to eat something that's very different from the elephant. And so you need somebody who's going to understand what those animals need to eat in order to stay healthy, and who's going to be able to help get all of those meals prepared every single day for those animals. Right, something I didn't think about a lot until I started thinking about, working with animals in this way. That, wow, look at everybody that you need in order to make a zoo run. And then I've also got landscape architect on this, because if you take a look at the picture in the top right-hand corner, those flowers don't just grow on their own, and you don't just have habitats for elephants that appear in the middle of Washington, D.C. Somebody's got to figure out how to put them all together so that the animals can live in harmony, and so that people can want to go visit them. So that, I thought, was a pretty interesting thing to think about, was all of the people that make a zoo work, and all of those jobs that allow you to work with animals. So here's another question for you. I've got a bunch of different critters on this right-hand side. What kind of animals do you think I'm going to talk about next, or what kind of jobs in which area am I going to talk about next? You know what we call these critters? So they're not pets, they're not zoo animals, right? These guys are wildlife, exotic. That's a good answer too. They're wildlife, and there's a lot of jobs out there in the wildlife area as well. You could be a wildlife manager working at a national park, or an ecologist, one of the ISs I said I was going to mention, a wildlife rehabilitator, somebody who helps the little critters when they're found without their mamas and need help, or when somebody is hurt and injured. The people that help these wild animals live in harmony with us. And I did promise you a bunch of ists, because if you do like science and you do like something very, very specific, you can actually get right down to like the littlest animal and become a specialist in that area, a roundworm or a snail or a fish or a bird. And I think these words are kind of cool. So if you're thinking about a job and you want to do something in silence, how cool would it be to be an ichthyologist or a what are my other ones here? Ornithologist or mammologist, right? Super cool names and super cool jobs, and probably something you didn't think that much about until we started having this conversation. So I hope where you're starting to kind of get your head and start thinking about is, that the opportunities to work with animals are really endless. If you don't want to actually handle an animal, and we're going to ask some questions in a couple minutes that will help you consider whether or not that's right for you, you don't actually have to, even if you want to work with animals or support animals. You could be an author. This book, The One and Only Ivan, is one of my favorite books in the world. And I see somebody has read The One and Only Ivan and The One and Only Bob. I have too. I love that you have read them. They're wonderful, wonderful books that tell you so much about animals and can make such a powerful impact. You could be a journalist. And I know that somebody mentioned that the little critter is sitting on his shoulders, but he doesn't have to be. You could still be out there taking wildlife photographs without the critter on your shoulder. But if you like animals, maybe you can have that cute little critter on your shoulder as well. I love the chat with all of you liking those books, and I think they're fantastic. But if you aren't somebody who's artistic or dramatic, and you remember in those early slides, I showed you, that if you're interested in drama or theater or public speaking, there are opportunities for you. But what if you're not? What if you like numbers? And what if you do like wearing a suit? Do you think there are jobs out there working with animals or in support of animals that exist for you too? I know I've sort of given away the answer, right? Of course there are. So if you want a job with animals, but you're really good at numbers, or you're really good at social media, or you're really good at marketing, some of the things that you think about mostly for business, the fact is, all of the organizations that we've talked about, animal welfare organizations, veterinary clinics, zoos, all of them need behind the scenes people who are making sure that they're not spending more money than they're taking in, the accountants of the group, or working with computers, because as we all know, everything runs on a computer today, marketing specialists that are promoting the organizations, and then development and fundraising that we've already talked about when you're thinking about nonprofit organizations. And so there's just so many jobs out there. And I have included on this chart, just some. I probably, could have doubled or tripled or quadrupled the size of this, but you wouldn't have been able to read it if I did. But just take a second and look at all of the different jobs that you could have and still work with animals. It's a pretty remarkable list of jobs, and a pretty remarkable breadth of strengths and breadth of interests that bring you to a point where you can still be working with and supporting animals. Now, if you are going to work with animals, there are some questions that you want to ask yourself, because animals are different than some other things that you might work with, right? So a question you might want to ask yourself is, do you genuinely care about the welfare of animals? If you don't, maybe you don't want to work with animals. And another question is, are you reliable and sensitive, compassionate, and empathetic? Because again, animals need that. They can't communicate with us the same way that people can. And so you really need to have those qualities in order to be working directly with animals. You wouldn't want to go to a vet clinic and have your vet, not like animals, right? You want to have somebody that does care about animals. You also want to have the necessary mental strength and energy, and the necessary physical strength and energy, because animals are, big and strong. And because sometimes, and I see the chat comment right now, every time I go to the shelter, I cry. That does happen, right? It can be sad and it can be stressful. And so, especially if you're going to work in animal welfare, you want to make sure that you have the mental strength and energy to do it, because it's really important when you're working in those areas. And I see somebody says our dog loves our vet. Isn't that what you want? You want your animal to love your vet. You want your animal to love the dog groomer. You want your animal to love the people at the pet store when you go to the pet store, right? All of the people they see, their dog walker. So it's super important if you go into some kind of animal care that you are that way as well. Now, another thing you want to think about is education. Are you willing to acquire the appropriate education and training? And can you afford the appropriate education and training? Now, you're starting really early, which is, as I said, awesome. So you can start thinking about these things, right? Do you want to go to school to become a vet, or do you want to become, somebody that works in a vet clinic, maybe as a receptionist first to see if you like it before you invest that time and that money? But those are questions you can start thinking about. And the last two are awfully practical. The first is, do you have any allergies that would prevent you from doing the job safely and effectively? My niece has severe allergies to cats and dogs, even though she loves them. So working at a shelter or working at a vet would be a really bad job for her. And if you have similar allergies, it would probably be a bad job for you too. Doesn't mean you can't work with animals. There might be other animals you can work with, but it's certainly something you want to think about. And then I'm going to end with the question, which is, how do you feel about poop? And the reason I ask that is because animals poop. They poop in a shelter. I know, but you got to say it, right? Because if you're not thinking about it and you take a job and you show up and you realize that there's an awful lot of poop involved and you don't like poop, then that's going to be a bad job for you. So I hope that helps you start to think about the things you want to think about as you think about, I'm fine with it, but it's still gross. I totally agree. That's how I feel about it. And that's how I'm able to work with the animals that I work with. But it's super important to think about the practical implications of any job that you're thinking about and whether or not it's the right job for you. So I've got one more slide of next steps before we get to talk with our special guests. And the first is, do your homework. And that means going on the internet and researching something that you're interested in. So you can search a day in the life of a zookeeper, a day in the life of an ichthyologist, a day in the life of a dog walker, a day in the life of a dog groomer. And you can see videos like the ones I showed, or like the one that I showed you. And you might also want to talk to people that you come across who have jobs that you're interested in, and see what they think about their job. Another is to get informed about your options. Figure out what education is required, figure out what training is required, so you have a sense of that. And as I said, it's awesome that you started so early, because you can start to think about these things and you can put a plan in place if you do decide that this is what you want to do. And then the last, when you get older, you want to think about volunteering or interning as opportunities become available. And so that's something, it's a good way of learning and understanding. And I know several of you saw all the volunteers in that video and how important they are to the functioning of an animal shelter. And so volunteering is a super great way of learning about a particular job and finding out whether or not it's the right job for you. And so I will also say that one of the best things that you can do, and you've already done it, is you've joined us here today and you've started the conversation. You've started thinking about careers at a very early age. And I'm going to end with the word that I've now used like 5 times, which is, that's just awesome. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Debbie, who's going to introduce some of our guests.
Thank you, Jen. I'm going to share my screen again so I can introduce our next guest. We're all thinking about stuff. I added the picture on the left just this morning, and I'll tell you why in just a second. So I'm happy to introduce Jackie. She actually had a career before being a dog trainer. She transitioned from being a respiratory therapist to dog training. In addition to caring for patients, She also taught both patients and respiratory therapy students. Jackie's medical teaching experience lends itself well to teaching people how to train their dogs. Jackie's dog training expertise and education comes from completing many, many, many professional courses, including the one she recently went to, and that was in Mexico for 2 weeks, training marine mammals, therefore the photograph. She has training partners, her Siamese cat and her Dachshund Terrier mix. She enjoys driving her electric car, and Jackie's dog Arrow enjoys riding in the electric car trail to wooded trails for hikes, one of their favorite pastimes to do together. So I know you want to find out more about dog training, so I will stop my sharing and let Jackie have the screen here. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, hello everybody. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. That picture made me laugh.
Me too.
Yes. Yeah. So like Debbie said, I actually changed careers. I wasn't a dog trainer initially. So I did start out in the healthcare field, the human healthcare field, and I worked in the human healthcare field for 17 years. Lots and lots of time spent doing that. And it was wonderful in and of itself. But after a while, I started getting tired of working 12-hour shifts. I started getting tired of working all the holidays and having to pick and choose when I was going to be with family and friends. So I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something differently. So during that time, we had adopted a cat. And our cat had some behavior problems. He would jump up on shelves, knock glasses off the shelf. Okay, you have to replace the glass, but he would try and eat the glass. That is so dangerous. There was no way that we were going to be able to, live with a cat who wanted to eat glass. So I read a book about cat behavior. And I did the things that they said to do in the book, and it worked. And I was like, oh my gosh, when I was 8 years old, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to work with animals, but that just isn't where my path led me at the time. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to revisit that. So what I did was I cold called a bunch of dog trainers in my area. So I called them up or I emailed them. And I said, cold calling just means you call them out of the blue. They don't know who you are. So I reached out to folks and I got a lot of no's, but it just took one yes. I got one yes, and that's all it took. One woman said, yes, I would love to have some help. Please come. So by going and apprenticing with her, I learned who to learn from. Because this was a brand new field. There's lots of good information on the internet, but there's also lots of bad information on the internet. So I wanted to figure out from people who I could see working, okay, who did you learn from? What was your path? So I learned who to learn from. There was a lovely trainer, famous, well-known author, Pat Miller in Hagerstown, Maryland. I was living in Northern Virginia at the time. So I thought, perfect. I went and took her academies and I became certified through her. And after that education, I went and I worked for some people. I worked at dog training facilities. Very, very important. In dog training, it's an unlicensed industry. Anybody can say like, hey, I'm a dog trainer. So you have to be careful and you have to take your education seriously. So I worked for people for 5 years. I got that experience. And then I launched my own business because I thought, oh, okay, I think I can go out and do this on my own. Oh, excuse me. Let me back up to where I was trying to decide what to do. When I was trying to decide what to do with animals, I shadowed vet techs and I shadowed dog trainers. So I shadowed both. And I decided that being a vet tech was so cool. It was like the paramedic of the animal world. However, for me, I was already working in a hospital. So I was like, this is kind of the same. So I want something different. I want something where I can have my own business someday. So that's why I chose the dog training. I just wanted to circle back to that. So back in 2018, after getting all that education and working for people, I started my own dog training business, Behavior United, and it's been a wild ride since. I would have never predicted pandemic was not on my bingo card for entrepreneur dog trainer. So I had to kind of rework things, and I work from home a lot where I'm demonstrating with my dog Arrow, and then I coach people back. I am seeing some folks in person. But that's kind of the state of dog training right now. A lot of it is a hybrid model where we do some stuff online and then we do some stuff in person. I would say if you're thinking of going to be a dog trainer, education is very, very important. You can do a college education. I have a bachelor's in biology. A lot of colleges, Hunter College in New York in particular, has dog and animal science courses. If you want to do more of to Jen's point, if you want to do more of the zoo or marine mammal tract, more college in California, they are excellent for that education. But do get an education and then go and apprentice someone and learn from them, because this is the type of thing that oftentimes things are just kind of handed down. Anybody have any questions about dog training? Oh, and one more thing, if you want to be a dog trainer and you're thinking, I want to be a dog trainer because I don't really like people, you're in the wrong field. Dog training is people training. You need to be a people person if you're going to be a dog trainer, because the dogs don't sign up for the classes, the people do. So it's all people communication, training the person how to train their dog. All right, now, any questions?
I have a question.
Mhm.
Why is Arrow sitting so nicely behind you? Is that something that you asked?
Yeah, so it's so funny. She volunteers to come to work with me. So when she sees me pick up my laptop and come to the basement, sometimes she'll come and join me and sometimes she won't. Today, what she did was she picked up a bully stick I had upstairs for her, brought it down here and was chewing it here. So she feels like she's on call right now. If I need her to do something, she's there, but otherwise she's keeping herself busy.
She looks very happy.
Yeah.
Any questions? So Jackie, how long does it take from start to finish to become a dog trainer? Normally you think about college, you go to college for 4 years, but how long does it take to apprentice and be able to be on your own?
Right. So with Pat Miller's program, I did them once a year. So that was 3 years. Once you complete 3 of her programs, you can become certified from her. In addition to that, there is a nationwide certification body called the CCPDT. And to sit for that exam, it's a 300 question exam. And to sit for that exam, you have to accrue 300 hours of coaching dogs and people before you can even register for the exam. So that 300 hours took a few years. So it took me I got certified in 2015, I think, 2015 or 2016, and I started in 2013. So it took about 2 to 3 years to get all of my hours just so I could sit for the exam and pass the exam. But I did work. So I did about 2 to 3 years of education, 5 years total working for other trainers before launching my own business. Yeah.
Darielle has her hand up. Darielle, did you have a question or were you responding to somebody else I see also in the chat?
No, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
What do I do if whenever we try to train the dog, she mopes around the house because she knows her dominance is being taken away, and then we can't do the training anymore because she goes into depression. So we can't train her. We don't know what to do because she pulls people down when she sees a car and she bites people and a whole bunch of things actually with this dog.
Yeah, so lots going on there to unpack. The whole dominance theory thing actually has been debunked. It's a myth. Dogs know we're not dogs. They know we're not dogs. So it's against best practices to treat dogs as if we're dogs. So you've heard the old things like grab the dog by the scruff because that's what the mama dog did, or don't let the dog go through the door before you. That's all bunk. Those are myths that are no longer supported, or they never really were supported by science. It sounds like your dog has issues with moving things, and your dog gets nervous about moving things, they redirect and take it out on whoever's closest to you. So, or to the dog, excuse me. So, definitely need a behavior consultation. I would prevent your dog from being in the situations which makes your dog uncomfortable while in addition to working with a professional. Yeah, but the whole dominance alpha theory, that is bunk. That is bunk.
Thanks. I'd never grab her by her neck, but
Oh,
thank
no,
you.
no, I didn't mean you did. I was just using as an example, like something that other people have heard. Yeah, that was just what had come to mind. No, I wasn't saying that you were doing that. Sorry about that. Just that the whole dominance thing, the dog trying to control everything, it's not supported. Yeah.
Debbie, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, Jackie, so one of the things that I talked about was all of the things that happen basically behind the scenes at big organizations. How do you deal with that in a smaller organization? So do you have to be the marketing person and the accountant and the receptionist and the trainer? Do you need to know all of those skills in order to do your job?
I sure do, Jen. Yeah, so in addition to doing the dog training piece, I have to answer emails, calls, texts. I have to do my own social media. I have to do my own taxes every year, my own accounting. It is a lot of hats. Having your own business is a lot of hats. That's why I do recommend, if you want to do that, work for someone else first and kind of learn how to do those things. I would also recommend getting a degree, maybe an associate's degree or some kind of training in accounting, in social marketing, in marketing in general, in communication skills. Absolutely. It's more than just working with dogs and people, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can hire some folks to do that stuff for you. But when you're first starting out, you're not making a lot of money. I'm married. My husband has a good job. So I was able to make that transition. But had I been on my own, I don't think I would have been able to do that. Yeah. And I loved your presentation, by the way, Jen. I was watching and I was like, ooh, mine's not going to be that good.
Thank you. I think Lily and Kate have their hand up.
Yeah,
Are there certain dogs that you have to have dominance over, like Shiba Inus? They're very intelligent, and they kind of do what they want if you don't train them right. So is that like a type of dog you kind of have to be more dominant over?
Right. So again, to the dominant theory, that is bunk. Dogs do what works for dogs. They're not trying to be dominant. They're not geniuses. They're not masterminds trying to take over the world. They're just trying to live peaceably in our homes. So dogs do what they get rewarded and reinforced for. So if your dog is, for instance, just an example, if your dog wants attention and your dog is jumping up at you, nipping, barking at you, and you yell at your dog, you push your dog down, you knee your dog in the chest, you're giving your dog attention. Even though you're giving a negative attention, you're giving your dog attention. So your dog thinks, oh, this is what my person wants me to do to get attention. So oftentimes we give dogs attention or we reinforce the behaviors we actually don't want. Let's say your dog was laying like Arrow is, working on a bully stick. And I'm like, good, she's doing that. She should know to do that. I'm not going to say anything. She should just know how to do that. Well, if I ignore the good behavior and reward the bad behavior, I'm going to get more of the undesirable behavior. So you have to kind of think like a scientist and think, okay, what happens right before my dog does the behavior? What happens right after my dog does the behavior? And once we can tease that out, you have to put on your little forensic scientist hat on. And once you can tease that out, then you can figure out how to change your dog's motivation, how to change and prevent your dog from rehearsing the undesirable behavior. But dogs are not here to take over the world. They're not as smart as maybe we think they are. They're really not trying to dominate us. They're just trying to do what works for them.
That's a good tip to end on, and hopefully we'll get lots of people training their dogs with positive reinforcement and understanding that dogs are dogs. So thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Glad you were here. We are going to move on. I don't know if some of you have seen on the little screen, I'm sharing my screen showing Paws and Dogs. Wanted to introduce Ada and Ivana. They were working in their homes doing boarding for dogs for quite some time, for about 6 years. They were working independently, and I should point out that they are sisters. And they decided to work together, and in early 2020 went into business together. We all know what happened in early 2020. People were not leaving their homes because of the pandemic. So their business suffered and they had to regroup, and they decided to learn dog grooming. And it was a good time to learn dog grooming because all the shops were closed and they could study with groomers. And they started their business, and it was primarily in Ada's home. And in June of this year, they opened up a shop, and it's in Silver Spring, Maryland, and on Colesville Road. If you're in this area, it's right across the street from where I live. And I went in, and it is just adorable. So I think the moral of the story is that sometimes good things happen even when there is a pandemic, because now they have this new cool business. So I'm going to stop sharing and let you guys take over. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Ada, and this is my sister Ivana. As you can see, we are still grooming dogs. So like the young lady had mentioned, yes, we started out of our homes independently. We've always loved dogs. And when the pandemic hit, we needed to really figure out what we were going to do, because our boarding and daycare business went downhill very fast. So we had no dogs to take care of. And funny thing is, we had already started learning how to groom before the pandemic. We had asked our clients if they wouldn't mind allowing us to use their dogs as guinea pigs. And so we started, first kind of shaving them down, looking at a lot of YouTube videos. So I think between the YouTube videos and the hands-on practice, we started getting better and better. And then when the pandemic hit, it was perfect, because by then we already had enough experience to feel comfortable going out to the public. And so we started kind of marketing ourselves through Nextdoor, through Instagram, Facebook, and just, inviting people to bring their dogs over for a groom at a much discounted price than what they would probably pay at a PetSmart or at a fancy groomer shop. So that's how we started grooming. We started charging very cheap rates. And I think about maybe a year later, we were pretty good at what we were doing. And the opportunity came up to open a shop because we had outgrown our space. We had hired another groomer. We had more staff. We needed people to help us wash the dogs. We still had the boarding and daycare in the house. So as you can imagine, it was a little crazy. So we came here, and we absolutely love our shop. I can give you a quick little tour. so that you can see what the shop looks like. Can I turn this camera around?
No, it's not.
Oh. So I'll show you the front entrance. We tried to make the shop as fancy as possible because people love coming inside of a space that's very welcoming. We have a little picture area here and it says Good Fur Day. So people like to take pictures of their dogs after their haircuts. So this is our front area. This is our little price list here. When people come in, they can look at the prices. We've got a tall front desk because when you're dealing with dogs, you need to make sure that everything is as tall as possible so the dogs don't escape. And we've got a little gate here. We've got two little cubbies here. So like if dogs are waiting or they don't get along with each other, they can wait here. We do have a cage-free environment. We don't like putting dogs in crates. There's only a few crates, but those are for drying, but we don't house the dogs in crates for long periods of time. We'd rather them just kind of hang out in the back over there. This is our grooming area. This is our staff. Say hi, everyone.
Hey.
So this is Taylor over here. She's one of our groomers and she's working on a dog right now.
Hold on.
This little guy's getting a full groom, so that includes a bath, nail trim, ear cleaning, and a haircut. Sometimes they come in matted, and so Taylor has to, work through the matting to try to untangle, or sometimes we even have to cut them short. And the dogs generally are very well behaved. We do have a few dogs that are a little difficult sometimes, but you just have to kind of have patience and, work with them and try to make them feel as calm as possible, which when you hear a lot of machines, it's a little difficult to do that. This is our little schedule here. Every day we write down the dogs for the next day and we erase them as we finish. We just finished this little one here. Her name's Delilah.
Her ears were super matted, so we had to go very short there.
This area back here is our bathing room. We have a few tables, so we dry the dogs on these tables here. We give them baths here. We've got 2 tubs. And so the dogs a lot of times will hang out in this area here. We've got a little corgi running around. We've got a water bowl. We've got a little cot. This little guy had a bath and what's called a sanitary trim. And a sanitary trim is when we just kind of trim their under area and their little butt area. And then he's ready with his Halloween tie. Where'd he go? Hey, buddy. So, thankfully, business is going really well. I think that we just have worked really hard to get to where we're at. We enjoy what we do. I really believe that you have to have a passion for what you do in order to really have a good outcome in what you're trying to achieve. And the people see it with their dogs. They see how they come out. They see the patience we have with them. We continue to advertise through social media. People continue to refer their friends. This community is a really nice community because we have the Four Corners pub next door where a lot of people, come have dinner and they bring their dogs. This community is very supportive of small businesses and just helping one another out. So we really appreciate that a lot. So I think it's all a community effort, social media effort, doing hard work, good job, and turning in happy little clients.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to add?
So that goes back to what Jen asked Jackie too, that you have to do everything, that you're not just the groomers, you're the business people, and it sounds like the accountants and the marketers, the whole everything.
Yeah, when you're a small business, you really do have to just nurture your business. It's like a baby, you're starting from scratch and you have to really build that business. You have to do everything: accounting, the hiring, training of people, training yourself, trying to figure out how we can become better groomers, better, at working with the public. It's a lot of small baby steps to get you to the ultimate goal. to where at some point we're hoping to open more locations. And then
Wow.
maybe we can hire an accountant that'll run our, take care of all of our numbers and keep us on track financially. But for now, we're doing everything. And it definitely is a lot of work, but we don't treat it like work because we love it so much that, we definitely enjoy what we do. And I think that's key whenever you're going to get into something, is try to find something that you're going to really enjoy, because then it won't feel like work.
This is Jen again, and I just want to add, looking in the comments, there are a number of comments that said, so cool, so cool. If we lived closer to you, we'd bring our dogs there. And I think that's, I'm going to use the word once more, awesome. And what it goes to show folks is what we were talking about, that if you're passionate about what you do, and you can clearly see the love that you have for these animals that you're caring for, people want to bring their animals to you. And so, it's just so great to see how much you love your animals and love your business. And I hope that our student attendants can see, just how much that makes them want to bring their dogs to you, and why that makes you such terrific small business owners and dog groomers. It's just really great to see. Look at those guys.
Yep, they're happy.
That's another thing our clients love, is we always have like these cute little ties and bows and bandanas. We try to really dress them up when they go home. And I think those little touches and details people really appreciate every time their dog comes in. Not only, are they getting a great groom, but they're also going home with something cute. So they always kind of look forward to, what's my dog going to be wearing this time?
So what
And
do
you're
you do?
seeing comments of so cute and awe in the chat as well. So people who are watching you are liking that too.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you, everyone really enjoys coming over here because they love seeing their dogs playing. We, when we're during the workday, we'll do social media videos on Instagram, with us cutting a dog or having the dogs playing. So people love seeing that interactive attention. So they get to sometimes see their own dogs on social media, and they get so excited because it's like, oh my God, my dog's getting some social media airtime. So yeah.
So how long do the dogs stay with you generally? If somebody has an appointment to get their dog groomed, are they with you a couple hours?
Yeah, generally, we try to tell our clients that it'll take a couple of hours, maybe more, maybe less. It depends if the dogs come in matted. It'll take, closer to 3 hours, because we have to, it's like a whole process when you give the dog a bath. If they're matted, if they have curly hair, like doodles, a lot of people have doodles, and doodle fur gets matted quite easily. So it's a process. We give them a great bath, double bath, and then we have to dry them. We have to brush them. We have to demat them. Unfortunately, sometimes dematting may hurt a little bit. So some dogs are sensitive and they don't like it. And that's when we'll have to cut them a little shorter. But some dogs are tolerant, so they'll tolerate the dematting, and then we're able to stay with a fluffy cut. So, it just depends. We do get a lot of Shih Tzus.
Yeah,
Shih
I did
Tzus.
a few today,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, they're, what are you talking about with the Shih Tzus?
Oh, we were talking about, I was telling them how we bathe the dogs, and depending on the fur, the just prepping of the dog. And then somebody wrote Shih Tzu and Huskies. Huskies come in for a lot of de-shedding. We get pit bulls. Pit bulls come in for baths, nail trims, and ear cleanings. We pretty much get a lot of different grooms. Oh, we get golden retrievers all the time.
And I see somebody just followed you on Instagram. So I'll send out all that information too.
Oh,
So they'll
great.
have that so they can.
We do get biters. Someone asked biters. I actually got, this is one of those professions where you kind of have to almost accept that you're probably going to get bit a few times. But over the years, we've learned to really pay attention to the dog's mood, pay attention to their facial features. Sometimes if they're licking their lips a little bit too much, that means they're probably going to get ready to bite you. Some are fast. Some don't even lick their lips. They just turn around and grab you.
Growl or anything.
So we keep a close eye on that. If we see that a dog is very high on anxiety, stressed, we'll put a soft muzzle. It's a muzzle that we put around their mouth, and it's soft, so they can still kind of open their mouths, but they can't open it big enough to bite you. We get Malteses.
Mhm.
Yep, German Shepherds. We don't get as many German Shepherds in this area. Most people here have Shih Tzus, Doodles, Poodles. We get a few Huskies. We get Golden Retrievers. Boxers,
We haven't gotten
only
too
had
many. Yeah.
We get boxer
Yeah.
mixes.
Mhm.
Well, we get a lot of mixes.
Mhm.
A lot of the short-haired dogs, I feel like the owners bathe them at home mostly. So they don't come as often. Bernese and Labs. We get a lot of Bernedoodles,
Yeah.
which are
Oh.
the Bernese Mountain Dogs mixed with Poodle.
Those I haven't seen before. I guess, well, they don't come into the shelter, obviously,
Yeah, they're usually
Yeah.
at least not yet.
Yeah, we get quite a few Bernedoodles. They look kind of like a doodle, like a golden doodle, except they're a lot bigger. They get up to 80 pounds, sometimes 100 pounds.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot of hair or fur to,
It takes
Yeah.
a long time to, when it gets to that weight and they're, curly haired dogs, it can take 3 hours, 3.5. So there's a lot of work, a lot of physical labor involved in all of it. So
The biggest dog we've had was a what's it called?
it was moose. I don't remember the mix.
English Mastiff.
A mastiff.
He was an
mix.
English Mastiff. He weighed
Wow.
187 pounds.
Yeah.
He was huge.
that's,
Yeah.
getting
We
him
had
in and out of
only-
the tub must have been fun.
Oh, luckily our tub has a ramp, so he was able to just walk up. But we couldn't put him on the tables because he was a lot bigger and just really didn't want to be on the table. So we had to do everything on the floor.
Yeah.
We dried him. We did his nails on the floor. Just whatever we could do to make him comfortable. And sometimes we've had to groom dogs on the floor. Taylor had a golden retriever that she had to groom on the floor
Mhm.
because some dogs are scared of the tables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone
So
mentioned.
I also went, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying someone mentioned that they saw that we dyed a dog's ears pink. That's another thing involved in our shop that we do. We do creative grooming. So that means like we'll do hair dye on like ears, tails, paws. We'll do mohawks sometimes. So that's like, a fun aspect of grooming where you can have some fun and, do creative styles. And we want to get to the point where eventually we can do maybe like a zebra design or, something fun that we've seen done, through Instagram, but we're not there yet, but
It's
we're
not
getting
permanent.
there. Yeah, it's not permanent. It doesn't harm the dog. It's, all the dye is dog friendly. So
It washes out over time.
Yeah.
Every time you wash the dog's hair, the dye gets a little bit lighter and lighter until it comes off.
So I also wanted to ask, what is it like working with a sibling?
oh, it's great. I mean, we balance each other out in different aspects, like she's more of, the person who handles upfront situations, maybe more with the clientele and, dealing with that. Whereas I'm more of the back end where I'm dealing with the numbers or just being a little more meticulous and organized. So for me and her situation, it really, works out because we both have strengths and, that help us to be very successful in our small business.
I think that's very cool.
Mhm.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, this has been so much fun. We love watching. Does anybody have any last questions before I let them go back to work? But I will share your Instagram and other information. Oh, somebody asked, what is matting?
Oh, matting is when the dog's fur gets tangled and it just turns into like clumps of tangles all over the place. So sometimes we're able to, I can actually show you what we use. We use several tools.
We have tools and sprays that kind of help to get that the tangles out, but like
So
these
we use
things
these
that
scary
look a little-
looking
yeah.
tools. They look like little knives, and what we do is we just kind of, work
Like
with
break
the
them
matting.
up.
This one too, these
Yeah.
are you have to really be careful when you use these because they can be sharp because they're literally like little knives that just kind of cut through the matting.
Mhm.
And then we use these combs to just help us
Mm-hmm.
comb through the hair. But that's how we detangle a dog. And like
Yeah.
I said, sometimes the dogs are just very badly matted that we just shave them down because
Yeah.
it's just too painful.
Sometimes it'll get to the point where it's literally like peeling a carpet off of a dog because the tangles are just so deeply knotted and all over the dog. So at that point, usually we'll just shave the dog down because it's just too harmful to the dog to even attempt to get all of that out of their fur.
I saw that someone said their dog got attacked and their doctor said that the mats saved the dog's life.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah, sometimes the mats are so thick
Yeah, they are.
that
thick
I'm telling
sometimes.
you, you could get something through there and it would be hard to get to the dog's skin.
Yeah.
So there was an advantage to having a matted
Yeah.
dog. Well, thank you so much. This has been lots of fun. I think you've inspired a lot of people to think about becoming dog groomers or having their own business sometime. So
Yeah, thank you. We were
appreciate
happy to share. We really appreciate you all
Yeah.
reaching out to us, and thank you for the Instagram
Yeah.
shares.
Thank you.
We
We'll do it
appreciate
again. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen next to the last time. Our last presenter today is Officer Long. Sarah Long has had a 10-year career in animal welfare. And she started in Charlotte, North Carolina, where she was hired as an animal care technician. She was interested in veterinary medicine, so she went to college and obtained a degree in animal science and agriculture. But while she was an animal control officer in Raleigh, North Carolina, she realized she could give back to her community much more by working in the field. Officer Long truly loves working in the field, helping both animals and people. I think people is a constant in our program today, that we're learning that most jobs do deal with both animals and people. The Humane Rescue Alliance was lucky that Officer Long moved from North Carolina to the DC area. She's been an animal control investigator with HRA for 3 years. And she is the loving adopter of Shosho. And when she sent me this wonderful picture, I had to look up Shosho. And Shosho is a dog who had been at HRA many times before she got this wonderful permanent home. So Officer Long, I will turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Again, I am Sarah Long. I'm an animal control investigator at Humane Rescue Alliance in DC. I've been here about 3 years. What I do now is mainly, as an investigator, deal with possibly dangerous animals and animal bites and things of that sort. But I really started out as an animal care technician, dealing with animal care, you hands-on every day, cleaning, washing laundry, kind of the dirty work. I like how it was posed earlier. What do you think about poop? Because it was a lot of that. But I never thought that I could be an animal control officer. The way that I thought it, I could only be a veterinarian to help animals. But I saw that I had a service attitude, and I just really wanted to help people in general. And I think that's what it kind of takes to work in this field. You have to have an attitude of service to people generally, because while you do love animals, you deal with them a lot. What you run into is people. You greet them where they are. A lot of times you want them to come to the shelter to seek help, but when we get these calls for service, a lot of the times it's people that need help. So we deal with a range of cats and dogs to sometimes we've had alligators, snapping turtles, of course, raccoons, possums, rats, birds, literally probably you name it, it has come up once or twice in the 10 years that I've been in animal control. As far as education, it really just takes a problem solver. Field work, you just have to use what's at your disposal. Of course, you have tools on your belt, you have tools in your vehicle, but it takes a in the moment decision, and you have to be resourceful, whether it be people, things that are nearby to kind of help you do your job. So I would like to share my screen just to show you some of the tools that I use on a day-to-day to assist me with a lot of calls for service. If I'm able to.
You should be able to share your screen.
Okay. So of course, our favorite tool and the one that I use the most is the leash. We always want to prefer to use the leash. A lot of times when we greet animals out in the field, especially dogs, they're scared. We like to take it take it slow and sometimes use the leash. But a lot of times in the field, animals, they don't know that we're there to help them. So sometimes we have to use the pole that safely is able to capture the animal and keep me at a safe distance until we're able to reassess or get the animal to the shelter, where of course our team take over to help that animal reacclimate or get them back to their owner. For this instance, for the turtle, this snapping turtle just needed redirection back to the pond. And we use those things just to help us stay safe. And as you can see, raccoons, although they are very cute, very cuddly, we always want to keep our distance because they are rabies vectors. And part of our job, as much as we want to protect animals and there are things of that sort, we have to protect people as well, and know that there's some things that we do in the best interest of everyone involved. So we'll use those catch poles to remove those from the trash, as they call them, trash pandas, remove them from garbage cans and other things that they've gotten stuck in. So like I was telling you, we deal with a lot of wild animals as well. So you really have to be cautious, and training is a big part of my job. Constant training, because there's always a new approach to how we deal with things in the field. As you can see here, snakes, we use our snake tongs. We have cat tongs, and for other animals, to get animals out of really tight spaces for these rescues. Of course, we use these gloves. As you can see, those are very sharp. When you're trying to save an animal, again, they really don't know that you're trying to help them sometimes. When you're doing this every day, you want to avoid injuries to stay in this field. So we use these things to keep us safe. So we get in contact with injured birds, other injured wildlife, where we would need to use a net or sometimes use a trap in order to best capture them. I kind of feel like animal control officers don't get portrayed the best way due to like movies and things of that sort. Has anybody had interactions with animal control? I don't know if I can see the chat though. So one time my mom held a goose in her lap. Yeah, sometimes, a lot of times that we get calls, a lot of people are knowledgeable enough to assist to a certain degree. If you come across injured wildlife, I would suggest call right away and stay by if you can. Sometimes when people get too involved, they may get hurt if they don't have the right tools. A stray cat. We deal a lot with stray cats. We like to assist cats best way we can. A lot of times they just need to be spayed, neutered, returned to the area. And our community is very good with that here in DC. They love their cats and they want them back home after we pick them up and get them treated.
Somebody mentioned earlier in the chat, do you see a lot of collars like the one you showed on your first slide, that really thick, heavy dog collar?
Oh, we do. People, their idea, sometimes they want to make their dog look tough and mean, and sometimes they put collars that are too big for them or unnecessary in order to portray that. So we do get a lot of that in the field. And a lot of what we do out in the field is educating that person, because a lot of times we're going to get a call back out there and we want to let them know the best way to handle certain situations. So we do get a lot of people that have some things that could be addressed, especially around like shock collars and heavy prong collars and other stuff that is really unnecessary. Oh, dog attacks. Yeah, they're always tough. I noticed that somebody said earlier that, you know, the motions, it takes you're emotional in there, but your desire to help and solve the issue kind of oversees that. But we do get a lot of attacks and things of that sort, where we do use some of these tools to separate the animal from the incident and try to get help for both animals and the owners. A lot of times these people need trainers, they need assistance, and sometimes animal control is the only person that is the middle person to get them to get that help. Do you have any questions?
What is the strangest call you've ever gone out on?
Strangest. There's so many. This one of the strangest calls I've gone out on had to be around a person that had a lot of cats. All the cats were in good condition, but they just were overwhelmed. So we do see a lot of hoarding situations, and they're never the same thing twice. It's kind of, each one is different, and a lot of these people have very good intentions and a very good heart towards animal. They just need help to take care of all these animals. So the strangest call was when we pulled about 100 cats out of a 2-story home that was just overflowing the top. I had never gone to a house with that many cats in it. It ended up being that we were able to home a lot of the cats, but that's probably one of the strangest or interesting calls that I've been on.
I think Lily has her hand up. Did you want to ask a question? And Margaret, you have a question too?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question.
Go ahead.
I know you get hoarding calls, but do you get hoarding calls about exotic animals, like for like markets and stuff? Like say someone wants an exotic macaw or something like that. Do you deal with people like that, or do like zoos deal with that?
I wouldn't say it was a hoarding call, but we had an exotic snake breeder that was breeding very dangerous snakes as a hobby. He mishandled one of his snakes and was bitten and had to leave his home immediately. Of course, we were called because at this point, a lot of the snakes that he had at that time were getting loose from his home. So that was another interesting call where we tried to assist best we could, but we end up having to call more professionals in to remove those snakes and things from the home while he was getting hospitalized, hospital treatment. We don't run into many, knock on wood, we don't run into many exotic animal hoarding situations.
And I think Margaret, you had a question. Did you want to?
Yeah, I have a question. For the cat hoarding call, was that the call that they had in the news where like this person had like 300 cats, like 103 cats in their house?
No, unfortunately that was a separate case, but prior to moving here in DC, we had a case back in North Carolina where somebody had that high number of cats a few years back.
Okay, because my mom, she works at St. Hubert's, so she's friends with some of the animal control officers, so she told me about that.
Oh yeah. Every once in a while we get a case like that. We try to help best as way we can.
Ryan, I think Ryan said you've got a question too you wanted to ask.
Yeah. Have you ever had hawks on your like calls? Like
Yes. If I could share again, let me see. Let's see. Like this particular call here, it was a young hawk that had fallen from a tree. The person that called ended up putting it in a dog crate for us to get there. So we had to remove it from there. So we do occasionally get hawk calls. Just because they're a baby doesn't make them any less strong. Their claws are sometimes fully formed and they're very strong. I kind of underestimated this hawk this day. And as you can see, I have on the thick gloves here, but once he grabbed my hand, I had to almost ask for somebody else to help pry the talons off because hawks are pretty strong.
Yeah, and then while you've got that picture up, couple things. Somebody asked what happened to the owl, and then I think Darielle's got a question too.
So what happened to this owl? This is a baby owl. It was pulled out of the nest by raccoons and was just in the middle of the street under the tree where it was. Somebody was able to shoo the raccoons away until I was able to get there and pick the owl up and transport it to a raptor rehabber that was able to rehab it until it got to the age where it could be released back in the area that it came from.
Great. And Darielle, did you still have a question?
Yeah. Do you get calls about like if somebody has like a snake or another animal and it gets out of the cage and they
Yeah.
can't control?
Sometimes we for one call I can recall that it was an apartment building where somebody lost their boa. It was a small boa, but they lost the boa, and it actually ended up being in the neighbor's home going through the vent systems. So you can imagine that that person woke up to seeing a picture being knocked off the wall and a snake was going across their wall. So sometimes we do get calls for, snakes or removal of snakes. If they are domesticated to the area, we're just removing them from the home. But in this case, it was somebody's pet. So we just returned it back to the owner.
And I think Carol had a question. Carol, do you have a question? Not sure. Oh, what is the most recent call you got? Was her
The
question.
most recent call, boy, these days started to cloud into one. I would say the most recent call that I have gotten was one for a raccoon that got hit by a car. In that case, the raccoon did not make it, but that was like my most recent call. Like I was saying, sometimes this job is emotional. It's not all rainbow and butterflies. You definitely have to have a tough skin because you see a lot out in the field. But when you realize what you're doing it for, you're able to keep going.
I also wanted to ask, as an officer, you generally travel alone, is that right?
Yeah, almost always we're by ourselves. If we need it, we can call another officer if there's like an emergency. But a lot of times we're just by ourselves.
Do you find that people in the field are generally grateful and helpful, or do you come
Sometimes.
across some that are a little combative?
Yeah, and that's why education is a big part of what we do. Because like I was saying earlier, we're not portrayed as being, very nice. And usually when you see cartoons, you see the animal control officer chasing after a dog. Nobody's happy. It's kind of like you don't see the good side of it. But a lot of it is people are grateful for us to help them, whether it be removing an animal from their home or helping them find their dog or their cat that got loose from the house or whatnot. But we get both.
And we're running out of time, but this is a really good question because I know this time of year I'm seeing a lot of deer in my yard. So somebody asked, do you get a lot of calls involving deer, especially
we're coming into that season,
hit by cars?
We get a lot of dogs hit by cars. Deer hit by cars this time of year. Sometimes when we get there, these deer are really, really tough. They bounce up and they keep going, but sometimes we do have to intervene. And if we're able to get them back up on their feet, we do that. But in some cases, we're not able to assist them in, rehabbing them and things of that sort, and they do end up getting put down.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. I think we probably could stay here and answer more questions. So we'll just have to do all this again. Everybody's going to need to, I'm going to share my screen one last time. Thank you so much, Officer Long, for being here with us. I'm going to share her, leaving that picture. What a cute picture. But just want to let everybody know, please check back on the Humane Rescue Alliance and St. Hubert's websites for more opportunities. We're going to continue to offer more virtual opportunities for students. We're able to bring you so many interesting guests this way. So check back often. If you have questions later, you can always email me. You've been getting emails from me all week. You can ask your parents to share that email address. And if you have specific email questions for Karen at St. Hubert's, you can also reach out to her. So thank you all for being here. And I hope you enjoyed learning about all the many careers that you could have working with animals.
Bye.